Before jumping into today's part, let's take a quick look back at what we've already done. So far, I've completed the base modeling of the treasure chest, starting from simple shapes and slowly building them into the lid, lock, and handles. Along the way, I also added bevels to the model, which really helped sharpen the edges and make the chest look much cleaner once smoothed out. These small details made a big difference, and it's been exciting to see the chest evolve step by step. Now, with the modeling in place and the hard edges sorted, it's time to move forward into the next stage of the journey. Alright, now it's time to start working on the UVs of the chest. I began with the lid's metal border. First, I selected the object, switched into object mode, pressed A to select all the faces, and then hit U to bring up the Unwrap menu. From there, I used the Smart UV project option. Since I'm still new to unwrapping, I decided to start simple by applying Smart UV projection to the entire chest. This gives me a quick layout of all the parts without worrying too much about manual seams just yet. It's not the most precise method, but it works perfectly as a starting point and helps me get ready to bring the model into Substance Painter for texturing. Step by step, I'm learning how UVs work, and even with this basic approach, it feels great to finally move into the unwrapping stage. After unwrapping the lid, I went ahead and repeated the same process on the other meshes of the chest. It's basically selecting the object, pressing A to grab all the faces, hitting U and applying Smart UV project. This part is pretty repetitive, but it's important because every piece of the chest needs its own UVs before we move into Substance Painter. Even though it's a simple step, it sets the foundation for all the textures we'll add later on. Now that all the meshes have been unwrapped, the next step is to make sure everything is scaled properly inside the UV space. For this, I selected all the meshes, switched into edit mode, and pressed A so all the faces were highlighted. The first thing we need to fix is the size of the UV islands. Right now, they're all at different scales, which can mess up our textures later. To solve this, I went to the UV menu and clicked on Average Island Scale, and instantly you can see all the UVs resized to match the same scale. But there's still a problem. They're not packed inside the UV space and some are overlapping. So the next step is to go back to the UV menu, choose Pack Islands, and just leave everything at the default settings. Once applied, all the UVs neatly fit into the UV space without overlaps, and now the unwrap is much cleaner and ready for texturing. With the UVs ready, the next step is to organize the model before moving into texturing. For that, I started merging similar parts together so everything is cleaner and easier to manage. I selected all the metal border pieces and pressed Ctrl plus J to join them into a single mesh. Then I did the same for the wooden parts, combining them into one object. I also repeated this for the lock and the side handles, so each section of the chest is grouped nicely. After merging, I renamed each mesh accordingly: metal, wood, lock, and handles. This might seem like a small step, but it really helps later on when we start texturing in Substance Painter, because everything stays organized and easy to identify. So here's an important checkpoint before we jump into Substance Painter. The goal now is to start texturing our treasure chest, because I also want to learn that software step by step. But while trying it out, I realized something. Substance Painter needs to know the properties of each part of the model, otherwise it won't recognize them properly. At first, I tried sending the mesh directly, but as you can see, it didn't respond the way I expected. To fix this, what we'll do is assign some basic materials inside Blender to each mesh, like one for the wood, one for the metal, another for the lock, and so on. That way, when we bring the model into Substance Painter, we'll be able to texture each part separately without any confusion. It's a small but really important step that makes the workflow much smoother when moving between Blender and Substance Painter. With the basic materials applied, I went ahead and exported the treasure chest as an FBX file. Then, I imported the mesh into Substance Painter, and this time, everything loaded perfectly. To test it out, I applied a simple material onto the metal areas, and now you can see it works exactly the way we wanted. Each part is recognized separately thanks to the materials we set up earlier. This means the model is now ready for proper texturing, and in the next part, we'll start adding details to really bring this treasure chest to life. I'm super excited to finally dive into Substance Painter and see how textures transform the model.